All right, welcome to A Cork in the Road, where I'm going behind the wine to interview and highlight people who are shaping the wine industry in the Southeast. Today, I have Emmanuel Faure from One on Wine. He was born and raised in the Rhone Valley of southern France, but he's now living in Atlanta to provide wine education and showcase a variety of new wines to our Southeast market. Hi, Emmanuel.
Hello.
What is One on Wine? Why are you in Atlanta? What are you doing for wine for us?
So One on Wine is actually a creation of mine, a wine distribution company. After 20 years of working in a restaurant area, decided actually, just like to be an ambassador, of the people who love to serve for so many years. So instead of being just like, in front of the restaurant, now I provide quality wines for the people, the restaurant and, in the retail industry.
Yeah, so you did get your start working in restaurants. What kind of work did you do? Was this in France?
So I started actually, I was 16 years old. I was an apprentice. I didn't know really what to do when I turned 16. Was not really good at school. And basically I was looking for a job. And the first job I found, was in a restaurant. And I was supposed to be a cook. The owner of the restaurant actually, needed more people, in the front of the house instead of the back of the house. So this is actually how my story started. I became a waiter, and the family I was involved in, who owned the restaurant, were very passionate about wine, and they gave me, this passion. Later on, I went to a sommelier school, become a sommelier, and then went to work, for different 3-star Michelin restaurants, in Europe. And back in 2003, I landed in Atlanta working with Chef Gunther Singer.
So it started in the restaurants, but then how did you find your way to wine? Were there certain people that you were working with as you were getting your certification in sommelier, but who really inspired you to find wine instead of being a chef?
Well, actually, I was surrounded, by people who were passionate about it. My first passion, was restaurant business. But I found out that the wine basically, connect more people, like it's just like food. You have foodies and you have like winos. I think that, me, I reach, both of the best worlds. I love food. I was used to cook. I served food, but most of all, I was happy, to share like a story about wine. And I got lucky that in my career, I found out like amazing winemaker, teachers, sommeliers, and they were all about wines. And basically, you can travel without moving about, stories. And I think that wine is one of the most beautiful stories to tell.
It really is. And I think that you have a lot of people in Atlanta that will absolutely agree with that philosophy as you're talking about your wines. What kinds of wines are you showcasing now with One on Wine? You said it's kind of education, you are distributing. What types of wines are you bringing to Atlanta market?
So the story began actually back in Los Angeles. Back in the day, in 2003, I was working in Buckhead, and then I moved to Los Angeles, in 2005, and I came back here in 2017. So all those years, in Los Angeles, I met a lot of people, and one of my best friends actually was a wine broker. And when I was used to manage restaurants, in Los Angeles, we help out each other. He was providing me good wines, and I was helping him, putting those wines, on the wine list of the restaurant I was used to manage. So later on, he became very, very successful. And then, at some point, he became a distributor, then an importer. So when I left Los Angeles, I decided actually, to be an ambassador of his product in the state of Georgia. So when I left, he talked to me and he said, "Why don't you create your license and your company and distribute, my selections?" And I was said, "Yes, absolutely. It would be great, to do it." So it took me about, a year to get my licensing, and then, it was a very easy process. All the wine that he has, was all the wines, that I was used to serve in the LA area. And all the one I have, at One on Wine, I'm very, very proud of, like supporting and, of course, distributing. Those are the philosophy that I want to bring on. And those are the philosophy I am very excited, to share with the people, in Atlanta.
I think that's perfect. And you have a philosophy of liking the wines that you're serving. That's got to be step one. Now, I recently was traveling in Burgundy around France, and you were super helpful because you had all this knowledge of Beaune and places to go for restaurants, not only wine. And are you bringing that kind of knowledge about the wines that you're serving here? Are you able to kind of talk about the place where they're from and the people because they are important to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. This is fundamental. Wine is not only a label. Wine is what is in the backstage, actually, what is made, back home. I am a big supporter of Mother Nature. I'm a producer that I distribute Mother Earth. And this is, the story. That's what it is. I think that Burgundy is probably just like where everything, begins. Because as you could see, the people over there, they are really passionate and humble about what they do, even though, you can find some gems over there, but wine is a part of their family. That's probably the reason why, they don't want to sell anything. They want to build trust first with you. You need to understand, who they are, where they are coming from, their product, just like their baby. It's like, giving a baby, to a nanny that you don't know. So you have, to build, connections, with these kind of people in order, for them, to trust you. So you can pass along this beautiful philosophy, that they are sharing, for like decades and centuries.
And you're able to share that. I think people in Atlanta are looking forward to always trying new wines. At least that's what I've seen. Can you describe what it's like when you go for maybe the first time you're meeting someone here at a restaurant or a retailer? How do you approach a new account with wines that maybe people don't know the background about?
Well, at first it's difficult, especially for me because I have such a big, thick French accent. So, it can be kind of intimidating, so at some point. And I understand that. First of all, you have, to build up a relationship. Selling wine is, the icing on the cake. I think that, you have to build trust. They have, to find out that you are not here, to take advantage of them. What they really want to do is to build up, some kind of connection. So this way, they can really get, this kind of connection passing along, to their customers. But the thing is, in Atlanta, just like every other cities, the competition is rude. There's no, there's no perfect, selections. It's really just like, like a one-on-one type of things to have, this kind of discussion with the buyer. And then if you share, the same philosophy, the business, come after. But you have to be truthful. You have to be honest about your product. I would not be able, to be as successful as I am right now if it wouldn't be just like, with like pure wines and a great philosophy.
Yes. So how important are those relationships when you're trying to meet other people that are kind of doing the same type of thing that you are in Atlanta? Is there a lot of competition when it comes to distribution that you have encountered, or how do you deal with that, knowing that it's getting to be a saturated market? How do you set yourself apart and deal with any competition?
Well, my approach is that, I think there is a room for everyone. Everybody has a wine that has a spot somewhere. Whether it's, like I'm in a small restaurants, like with small capacity, or just like a high-end one, is very successful. I think that, what comes around, this is everything about wine. For me, I am very, very happy, just like to do what I do, just because I don't have any quotas. I sell, what I really want. I sell, what I really love. And actually just like put me, on the quality side of, the job, because I have to sell, what I like. I was used to work, for like a big wine company, back in A, and when they just like, come to you and they said, well, you have, to sell 20 cases, of wine that you don't really like, you won't sell it because it just shows, it shows on your face that, you're not really thrilled about what you are, selling. Well, I don't have that problem because I'm super excited about every single label, that I carry. So, and then when I meet, someone, who does the same thing, like as what I do, we talk about wine. We share, like stories. We share wines, if we have samples, in our bags, and then, we connect. And I met, some people who are actually doing, the same thing that I do, and they are helping me. It's like, well, if you want to do and make some business, to this place, to talk to that guy, and they are super helpful. That's the Southern hospitality. I have to say here, just like it's a great environment.
Southern hospitality of sharing wine knowledge and relationships. That's really, really cool. Well, the whole reason that I met you was through another distributor selling completely different styles of wines. But I think if you run into people who are always looking for interesting wines to try, the more types of opportunities that there are in Atlanta to try new things, you're going to find people that want to meet you for what you're serving. So that's really exciting. What are you drinking at home? Are you drinking your wines? Do you branch out of French wines? What are you liking right now?
Yeah, I drink, the wine that I sell. I also have a very nice wine cellar, that I've been collected, like for all those years. And actually right now, I'm going to show you a label. this is what I'm drinking, when in your interview. I don't know if you see that.
Oh, it's a Burgundy.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. What would be a better wine, just like to drink, for an interview, a Chardonnay from Burgundy. There you go.
I love this. I am so glad that you are drinking a Burgundy because I am still just absolutely missing being there. And in fact, I was most impressed through my travels there with the white wines, mainly because I've had very few of white wines from Burgundy leading up to my trip. So it was this really eye-opening thing of the complexity and how the soil really does drive individual appellation differences between the white wines. And I was just absolutely excited and blown away by it. So here you are drinking a white Burgundy, and I couldn't be happier about that. So what are some other wines in your profile, in your portfolio that stick out that might be new to somebody in Atlanta, that they may have not tried anything like it before? Does one or two stick out?
The good things about my portfolio is like it's as eclectic as traditional. So, if someone, wants to go, traditionally, I have some rising star, in Burgundy, such as Sébastien Christophe in Chablis, for example, who just got a gold medal, for his Petit Chablis of the competition in Chablis last month. He's the rising star. Everybody wants, to have this kind of wine. And he has, like almost nothing to sell. You cannot find this wine, beside Los Angeles, San Francisco, or New York, and now Atlanta. So, this is basically just like, what is my crown, in my portfolio. But you can have also like Thierry Richoux, from Irancy, with kind of a small appellation that nobody would care about, like decades ago. And now, everybody talks about it, with global warming, this kind of flavor, just like reminds everybody of Nuit Saint-Georges, even though it's very close, to Chablis. The competence of those wines, are out of like world class right now. So those are kind of a Burgundy, that are just, like highlights in my portfolio. But you can also find, some very good wine, from Corsica. You can find, some good wine, from Provence. You can find, some gems, from Jura, for example, who, kind of, those kind of intimidating, yet very humble. But not a lot of people understand, what they are. But when they try it, it's a real discovery. And I think, this is what this is all about. One-on-one is not only about, like a traditional wine and traditional name. It's a pursuit of people who are rising. People who, like in 10 years, 5 years, from now, everybody wants, so this is what this is all about. I am the precursor of pushing, those people ahead right now. And I'm seeking, these kind of people that everybody will talk about, in a few years.
You get to be discovering and you get to be a wine explorer for people. And I know that you travel a lot. You've obviously been to a lot of vineyards and to wine regions. How important is that in someone's growth of their wine career to actually visit the place? What are some of the benefits of going to wine regions, meeting the winemakers, and seeing the vineyards?
Well, the bottom line, is when you sell, to a restaurant, and if you don't really know what you're talking about, you lose credibility. And the best way, to avoid that is to simply go, at the source. And I encourage, people, all along my career, to do exactly what I've done. It's to take time, spend time with the people who are making the wine and even make wine. I did, like a two winemaking season, one in Bordeaux and the other one in the Rhone Valley for two different vintage. And it helped me, to be a better sommelier. It helped me, to really understand, their philosophy. But above all, it just like helped you, to understand what Mother Nature is all about, why the wine tastes this way. Why is it such a bad year? Why is it such a good year? And then, when you understand, all the geological effect on that, I think it just gives a plus, to the customers who probably don't really know anything about wine. And it enlightens, their confidence on you by, buying some wine and discover, what you have on your wine list and in your wine cellar. So I think it's very, very important, to travel. You have, to make some time, for it. It's a big part of our job. I think that I know that restaurant business, is very time taking, but at some point, it's fundamental, to go and travel. And even in America, you can fly, like 5 hours and go and even in California, and then, go from Santa Barbara all the way up, to Sonoma County, and then, travel, with the Californian wines. It will help, just to understand, what Californian is all about and meet, like great people, great producers. And I think this is very important for what we do.
It's extremely important. And it also is really fun. If you are a wine geek, going to the places can be the highlight of your year, to go to these incredible places that you love the wine from. And I'm just curious, because you have traveled a lot and you are from France and you are living now in Atlanta. How would you describe any of the differences between our current American wine culture and, let's say, European or French wine culture? What are some of the key differences between how Americans approach wine and how Europeans approach wine?
Well, I think, for the last decade, American winemaker, have been doing a great, I would say, progress about finding, the right balance of the potential that they have. California, as everybody knows, it's a very, very hot climate, very rich soil, and give, like a very opulent wine. And right now, it was used to be very difficult, to find elegance, to those wines. Because they are seeking about, like acidity, in a very low acidity area. And I think that right now, they are making like world class because they understand what quality is. They understand, what hard work is, to really make the right decision, when comes the harvest, make the right decision, in the wine cellar, to fix, those problems in order, for them to really be successful, as making like like a world class wine. I think that America, had a philosophy, I would say, some kind of an history of booze drinking. The generation, like older than us, people who are right now, like in their 60s or, like 50s. When they were young, old enough to drink wine, they were not drinking wine at first. They were just like, getting into a cocktail. And that has an effect actually on the wine world, because when you just like start a menu or like a meal in a restaurant, and you have, like one martini, and then after, your palate is completely soaked, into alcohol and burned. So if you want to have wine, you have, to have like big cab. You have, to have like very, very strong and powerful, wines. And all those years, winemakers, were making wine for this kind of market. And I think that right now, because of the market right now is more pleasing, for the people like in our generation, like the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s, who didn't really have, this kind of experience, for booze and martini drinking, as an aperitif, for example. They are a bit more, sensitive, for finesse and elegance. And that's the reason why, right now, the winemakers are making, some wine that are actually just like more enjoyable, with a lot more finesse, more acidity driven. We like, to white wine or even, like champagne or any type of bubbles. And then, at some point, we go along, with like a very nice bottle of wine. So we always had, this kind of philosophy of having, just like the right balance, when it comes, to wine. And once again, the food in France, is very rich, but our wine, just like can be very accommodating with any type of meals regarding of all the regions. So, the diversity is very, very deep. And that's the reason why, the two countries are just like different. And I think that, that's very important, right now.
I think that it's really exciting to see the differences and appreciate the differences in the winemaking styles from France or the old world compared to new world. For me, I approach food pairing really with an open mind, more so with old world style wines. I really like high acid and complexity when I'm pairing wines with food. So I'm often going to pick a French wine, an Italian wine, delicate complexity when I am pairing with a food. And I'm wondering if you have any philosophies about pairing wine with food. Do you follow any rules, or do you just kind of focus on what you like to drink and what you like to eat?
Well, pairing wine and food, was my most exciting experience, as a sommelier. For me, there is two different ways, to make a pairing. The most common one is by harmony. You try, to find the same flavor profile, in the wine and in the food. So, by example, if you have like red meat, you're gonna go straight, with like a red wine. Or if you have fish, you're gonna go straight, with white wine. I would say the stronger wine, the bigger piece of meat, I would say. So this is actually, the pairing, by harmony. It's a kind of a pairing, with no risk, kind of like an easygoing one that everybody likes. It's a win-win situation. But the most exciting, pairing that I've been doing, in my career is by contrast. And I learned that, when I was used to be a sommelier in Germany, it's just because, German wine are probably, the best wine to do pairing by contrast. Basically, what the pairing by contrast consists of is you're going to try, to find the opposite taste beside your food. Meaning that if you have fish, you're going to try, to find something completely, different, as far as wine. So what you're going to have is on one side, you're going to have all the flavor brought, by the food. And on the other side, the opposite side, you're going to have all the flavor brought by the wine. And then, the mix of both, will create like a third taste. And that's what the contrast is all about. And one of the most successful, pairing that I've done, when I was used to be a somm is, for example, like a sweetness, with tuna tartare, like saltiness, with the raw tuna, with the sweetness, of, like a sweet Riesling brings, like a third combination that is actually just like very intriguing, when people discover that. I remember, like pairing, some kind of dark chocolate, with like whiskey. We can go on and on, there's a lot of things, you can do. You have to be adventurous, of course you have to know what you're doing, but at some point, if you don't take any risk, you don't surprise anybody. Wine pairing, it's the most exciting things, when you're somm, for sure.
Especially when you're in the restaurant setting, because you get to expose people to maybe taking a new chance on some type of pairing and looking at the list that you've created and the food offering. Now in Atlanta, we're really lucky to have some adventurous chefs. We have some really fantastic restaurants. How is that impacting how you approach which wines will go with different restaurants in Atlanta? Do you have like dishes that you would just dream of putting your wines with here in Atlanta?
Well, we are in the South, like the Southern food, the Southern concept of food is basically just like kind of comforting, as it says, but yet very challenging. When it comes to wine pairing, with that, it's kind of, like a risky business. And there's a lot of chefs, as you said, super talented, that I like, who are actually, taking the risk of putting, some dishes, like on the, on their table. And it must be, like very exciting, just like to match wine, with this kind of wine. When I was used to work here in Buckhead with Chef Gunther Seeger, well, Chef Seeger, was a German, like chef, and he was super, talented. I was thrilled, just like to do like some kind of, wine pairing, with his tasting menu. I think that the chef is, like talentuous. The more, the more the sommelier, should be adventurous. Adventure is just like it's a game, it's a show, just like that. Put it this way, the restaurant is a theater. You are the actor, and basically, it's your scene. This is actually where you act. And if you are just like good at what you do, people go and leave and shake your hands, and they come back for more.
I love that you called it a theater. I've been at some restaurants in the South where I've had these amazing dishes and kind of pairing menus. But the best thing I experienced one time with the tasting menu was in Charleston, South Carolina, and the music was also choreographed to the experience of the food tasting. So they wanted you to have the food, the wine, and the music playing all orchestrated at once. And it was definitely reaching to that theater aspect, right? It was this combination. Each element on its own might have been awesome, but the combination was a whole new experience and absolutely unforgettable. So you have the power in a restaurant working with your chef to create these awesome pairings. And they might be completely memorable and people will never stop talking about them. You're a part of that, which is really, really cool.
I was, doing some kind of stuff, like in a restaurant I opened in Los Angeles called Akabar. And it was a half restaurant, half nightclub. And we found out that people, are more selective, of wine regarding of the music they listen, and it's super interesting. I tried, like different, like when we play, some kind of music like a rock. People, were looking for like some kind of mid-range, like a medium body, kind of red wines. Classical, they like more like bubbly champagne, kind of acidic wines, like still like a style like a Sancerre, for example. Music has an effect, on your mental mind. And that leads you, just like to open, something that you really care about. And when it comes to wine, super interesting. And we did that, over like a length of 1 month with like different people, and it was super interesting. So
you did a study of changing people's minds based on the music. I'm a scientist, so I appreciate studying wine and people's behavior. So that's what I do. So where can people find more about your wines? Where are you selling in Atlanta right now? And where can we learn more about your brand?
Well, I'm trying, just like to get involved, a little bit more in the metropolitan area, meeting, with like knowledgeable, somms and wine directors. But you can find me just like, in north part of Atlanta as well. I think there's a lot of people here, like in Alpharetta, Roswell, that are eager, to, learn about wine and, taste wines. 50% of my business is actually outside of Atlanta in the north part of the area. I think this is the kind of area that everybody, forget about. But most of the people who are actually going into Atlanta, to these kind of fancy restaurants lives in the suburbs. And, I'm not targeting any restaurants here, but, a lot of wine store offer a lot of very, very good selections. And this is actually where my business is going, especially outside of the metropolitan area. Restaurants, of course, in a Buckhead, downtown, Midtown, fundamental. This is a way to go. But outside of Atlanta, when people, don't really go often beside the weekends to spend some money, for like a good meal, they stay home and they just go, to a wine store and just like pick their wine. And I think that a lot of retailers around this area in the north part are actually, seeking like good wines. And this is where I am available, to be seen.
Do you do tastings in the retail shops about your wines? Is that something that you offer?
Yeah, I actually did one yesterday at one in Crystal in Johns Creek. I did 6 different wines, and I was just like, doing a live tasting, explaining every single one of them. And we had a turnout about, 50 people, including, all their club members. So it was like a very, very good exchange, a lot of good discussions. This is a very, very nice store. They do that, every Saturday from 3 to 6, and their selection is beautiful.
What were people asking you about? If this was a new group you hadn't presented your wines to before, were people asking about the soil? Were people asking about the winemakers themselves? Like, what are you finding when you're discussing your wines with people in these situations?
Well, I mean, we discuss about, the philosophy when I can, because it can be very, overwhelming when you have like 10 people, coming at you, for, like a glass of wine. It can be just like kind of, yes, like a octopus, kind of things, and answer a question, to one. But this is basically what it's all about. You have to have a conversation. You have, just like, to talk about it. So you go to, to the essential, what kind of wine it is, where it's coming from, who is making it, why is it here? And, that's what people need to know. The fundamental. After, if the wine is good, they're asking questions. And then, where they ask questions, that means that they're interested. And then, you go deeper into, like descriptions and technical parts of it, if they want to. But, when you have people who don't really know what they're drinking, it's good, for me or for them, to know, first of all, the essential. And then it's good to know, of course, when you are a guest like that, what are the flavor profile, of the wine, what they are looking for, what they like. So it's good also, to have a wide example of variety of wine when you have a tasting like that.
Well, I'm extremely excited that you are bringing these wines to Atlanta. If anybody needs to take a trip to France but stay in Atlanta, they should find your wines. And I look forward to seeing you all over Atlanta at all of our wine events. And thank you so much for your time, Emmanuel. Go find him, One on Wine, amazing French wines. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.